Welcome to All Business No Boundaries, a collection of supply chain stories by DHL Supply Chain, the North American leader in contract logistics. I'm your host, Will Haywood. This is a place for in-depth discussions on the difference DHL makes on your supply chain challenges. Today's episode is 2026, the year ahead with DHL Supply Chain CEO, Mark Kunar. Let's dive in. Mark, welcome back to the All Business No Boundaries podcast. It's great to have you here. We'll start off like we always do. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, full name, your title and role, the company you're with, and how long you've been here.
Thanks, Will. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah.
And so Mark Kunar, I'm the CEO of DHL Supply Chain North America. And I've been with the company for nearly 30 years.
Mm-hmm. You've been with us before. But this is your first time as CEO of DHL Supply Chain North America. So first of all, congratulations there.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people are excited for you as you step into that role. I wondered if you could share with the listeners sort of how the transition has been going, what's exciting to you about the role, and where you see biggest challenges coming up ahead.
Yeah, so it's been real exciting. To use a sports analogy, the first time you try to hit, a fastball, and you crank up the miles per hour on the fastball, it felt like I was hitting, beyond what I could for the first couple of months, and now the ball's slowing down a little bit and able to connect. So it's been good. Overall, I continue to be extremely excited about just the opportunities. So huge opportunities with our customers. I still see, how we can continue to help them improve their supply chains. And every day we talk to a customer and they say, well, I didn't know that you guys did that as well. So the breadth of services that we're able to provide customers is still somewhat unknown, and exciting that we're able to do that. And then also, probably most importantly, the people. So everywhere I go, I continue to meet people that are the best in their industry, and whether that's a number of our customers, but really more importantly, our associates. And it's amazing to me. Everywhere I turn, I see an expert in a different area.
So I wondered if you could share with us a little bit. You spent the last year plus as Chief Financial Officer, which was a new role for you as well. And I wonder what that experience was like, and then how that has helped you or hindered you in terms of making the transition to the Chief Executive role.
Yeah, I think every experience gives you a little bit of something that you bring into the role. I think where it's helped me so far is it's given me the ability to have that background, mm-hmm. and not have to worry about it. So I feel like I've kind of prepped the financial side of the business for the last year, and then as I'm kind of working through some other things organizationally, I've got that in the background, which is nice. It also gave me an opportunity to really kind of understand where the profit pools were organizationally, where the opportunities are. We did a lot of work on market sizing and white spaces that we can continue to go after. So it's giving me that opportunity to kind of take that into the new role.
One of the comments I've heard you make a couple times with a variety of audiences is around operations, operational excellence. I wondered if you could share a little bit your thoughts about that topic.
Yeah, I think, we've grown up over the last 30 years or so, mm-hmm. really focusing on operational execution. I think it's what's given us the right to grow with our customers. Mm-hmm. And I still think that's the case. But overall, I think we've taken it to another level from the standpoint of, for years, our customers always wanted to talk to us about continuous improvement and what are you doing there, innovation. I think those have been woven into our operating platforms so that, our teams understand that customers no longer have to ask about continuous improvement. It's just part of our DNA. So whether it's whether it's innovation and bringing the newest technologies to supply chain because we're often piloting many of the new technologies that come around, or just the day-to-day service execution that you have to do in this business. It continues to be the foundation for what I think is a very strong and resilient company.
Yeah, and maybe a couple words about the scale of the business, because I think that's one of the things when you think about the operational execution, then you think about sort of how broad it is. Just tell us sort of the size of the business that you're running, number of people, number of facilities, kind of how that shakes out.
Yeah, so over 600 facilities spread throughout the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Over 42,000 associates that call DHL their family. So very proud of that. And the sheer scale from the standpoint of a number of business sectors that we focus on, from tech, consumer, life sciences, automotive, engineering, manufacturing. So many of those we intentionally focus on the services and requirements of customers in those spaces because often their needs are very similar.
Yeah, so you and I have worked together a long time, but when you kind of lay out the scale of that business, I know your capabilities, but that's a daunting task as a leader. Is that intimidating to you? I mean, how do you think about that as you drive into work every day? All of those associates, all of those customers, it's a lot it seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, so the care and well-being and the safety of our associates is probably the heaviest on my heart. Every day, making sure that our associates go home every day safe. So that is probably number one concern that keep me up at night type scenario. So I'm really happy about how we continue to make progress every day. We won't stop until we have zero incidents in our business, and that's we need to have that mentality going into our operations every day. But just overall, from a customer standpoint, our customers rely on us every day to execute, to deliver, and our failure would cause serious harm to our customers. So I think we just need to continue to make sure we understand that we're a significant part of our customers' partnership and ecosystem, and we need to continue to recognize that.
How do you and your team stay close to customers?
Well, we have a very robust account management process, QBRs, a number of different things that we do from a day-to-day basis. But I think where really the rubber meets the road is at the day-to-day floor level of us giving feedback to our customers about what we're seeing in their truck, what we're seeing in as far as kind of the packaging requirements that they're asking us to execute against. So while the top-to-tops are really important and we have to do those to make sure that we're staying aligned with customers, that day-to-day feedback of what we're seeing on the floor in our trucks and in our service areas and service centers is what's most important, I think.
The market overall, you talked about, in your CFO or strategy roles, thinking about white spaces and growth areas. I wanted to start with maybe the customer environment today, because 2025 has been a turbulent year, economically speaking. Are you seeing patterns sort of across the board, or are you seeing distinctions from one industry sector to another? How are customers sort of faring through these times?
I guess what I would say is most customers are evaluating how they continue to become leaner overall. With tariff trade disruptions, with macroeconomic concerns around growth. Generally, I see customers focused on how do we get lean, efficient, how do we make sure that the investments that we've made in technology and digitalization, how are we making sure those pay off? So customers are challenging themselves as to the investments that they've made. How do we leverage those? How do we make those give us more resilient supply chains?
So I know DHL had commissioned a study recently where we interviewed some executives, sort of a broad patch of executives. Interested in your initial observations on some of the feedback that came through there, and how is that informing, your leadership of the DHL team?
Yeah, there was a number of things that came out of that. I think cybersecurity came out pretty loud and clear. And obviously it's always something in the back of our mind. We're continuing to invest, continuing to move more of our platforms to the cloud, and really leveraging many of the hyperscalers and the security that they're able to offer us from that standpoint. But also just the amount of investment that's been made over the last 3 to 5 years in technology and digitalization, and the thought that there's more to come in those areas. So only about 40% of C-level and VPs, directors, those individuals that are focused on what's happening on the day-to-day standpoint in their supply chains, are comfortable that they've put the right amount of robotics, automation, digitalization, and technology. So it really said that, to me, that there's going to continue to be investments in that space, but they're looking for ROIs as well. So we have to make sure that as we're looking at investments in technology, that the ROIs are there for them. And I think having scale as a 3PL gives us kind of that unique opportunity to help customers with that, because they may be looking at robotics as a one and done solution for one of their facilities. We're really looking at robotics that are able to scale across 10, 15, 100 different locations that make sense.
Yeah. Related, the buzzword of the time is artificial intelligence, and a lot of hype and activity around that subject. How do you keep the organization focused in a constructive way around AI? How's the team pursuing different artificial intelligence technologies?
Yeah, so just like a number of the technologies over the last 3 to 5 years, we have teams that are focused on developing pilots, looking at the newest technologies in those areas, running them through the funnel to see which ones come out, and as I was saying earlier, do have an ROI associated with them. But AI is a bit different, because I think people are still imagining what it can do from that standpoint. I think robotics is pretty simple in that you look at repetitive tasks, and generally people look at those and say, yeah, but I can get a robot to help me with that repetitive task. I think with the AI, I think it's still so new that people are kind of trying to figure out what it means to them, and how does it make me more efficient in doing my work. So I think on the agentic side, I think there's tremendous opportunity. I've continued to talk to my teams about the fact that forecasting, planning, those are the areas that probably are going to have the largest impact on our business, make us more efficient, drive to a better scenario for our customers. I know our customers, even in the Insights 2030, customers cited the fact that the changing demands of their business are really what drives instability. And so if we can begin to get ahead of some of the planning and forecasting around the base businesses, we can handle the fluctuations much better.
So back to the cybersecurity topic. I've been surprised to see that the logistics industry is one of the bigger targeted industries in the market. Why is that, and what's DHL and maybe some industry peers doing about it?
I think the target just has to do with just the sheer number of connections that the logistics industry has with end consumers. And I think that just opens up a number of vulnerability points that exist. So our business is known for that sheer mass number of transactions that occur every day. So I think that's what drives some of it. But from a day-to-day standpoint, it is something that continues to be something that we have to put on the front and our focus We look at how are we going to protect our customers. We have continuity plans on what happens if one of our customers is attacked. Really proud of the way our teams react when that happens. We continue to monitor, from an outside standpoint, how does the external world look at us from a cybersecurity standpoint? I'm happy to say that our BitSight score is 760, most recently out of 820. Our competitive set is somewhere around 660. So I do think that we're outperforming the industry overall from that standpoint. But it comes with investing in 24/7 cybersecurity defense centers and things that we have to continue to look at every day to make sure that we're keeping ourselves as well as our customers safe.
Yeah, great. Yep. So we're recording towards the end of 2025, and I wondered if you could kind of comment on the performance of the business overall this year, and then you're a CEO, not a fortune teller, but for 2026, what are you anticipating, and how do you see that year developing, at least in the first half?
Yeah, so I would say, overall from this year's standpoint, what we experienced is our customers' volumes have been somewhat lighter than 2024, and 2024 was lighter than 2023, especially in the consumer space. So we're seeing some of that slowness, come through overall. I'm really proud of how our teams have reacted and continued to drive productivity savings through our businesses, and have been able to respond to customers as they're changing, as their demands have changed. So a little bit light. I would anticipate, I feel like next year is going to be pretty flat to this year. And, we're going into the year assuming that will be the case. I think Q3, Q4, I think will be kind of an interesting time period next year. Will we take another climb, kind of through there, or will it be flat again to 2025? But generally, I think we're anticipating volumes to be very similar in 2026 as what they were in 2025.
And dialing back out, and you're now on the global board, is the picture similar in other operating regions, or what's the world look like?
Yeah, very similar in other areas. I think, we started the year, and I think many companies held back on investment decisions based on not understanding kind of what the tariff and trade situation was going to look like this year. I think they're starting to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I think that's going to occur this year, next year, maybe for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think people are just going to have to learn to deal with that. I think DHL is in a great position to help companies deal with that. We've been, this isn't our first rodeo when it comes to trade and customs. We've done it for a long time. We understand that business, and we're reacting, really as quick or quicker than anybody in this space to help our customers continue to trade freely between regions. So, overall, globally, same type of picture. Yeah, the trade lanes are changing throughout the world, and some of them are more robust than they were in the past, and then some flows into the U.S. are lighter.
Great. So 30 years at DHL, about. That's a long time, and you've seen a lot. And I just wonder, as you reflect on your time here, what have been some of the things that, I don't know, you've liked or have been pleasant surprises, or what keeps you here? Just kind of tell us something about that.
Yeah. So it's been a very fun ride overall, and I think the one thing that DHL has always provided me is a new opportunity to learn. If I look back at the number of roles that I've had over that 30-year period, and it definitely has been, something very rewarding for me. And I got the opportunity to make mistakes. I got the opportunity to lead large teams, and that's really neat. And got the opportunity to do things that I never thought I would in my career. I started as an accounting major, and after a couple of years, I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And so it's been real exciting to have a really broad career in logistics. And the nice thing is really over the last 5 years, the importance of supply chain and logistics has really changed. You know, and I think that was brought about by COVID, and people realized that you know, having a very resilient, cost-effective supply chain is a differentiator when it comes to your ability to service your customers and really drive long-term growth within your organization. So it's been neat to see how that has changed, you know, really over that 30-year period from, you know, you would tell people you worked in the logistics and they'd ask you what that was, to today, if you say I work in supply chain, they want to ask you about trade, tariffs, and a bunch of other things.
Yeah, and so play that out for sort of the younger people in both our business and then the industry overall. What are you seeing from a talent mix perspective?
Yeah, I think many engineering schools, many business schools are continuing to really recognize that supply chain is an important area to focus in. And we're seeing more and more programs that are specifically targeted towards, you know, supply chain logistics, and the professionalism of those programs continues to increase. So we hire, you know, somewhere around 200 interns a year. We have between 200 and 250 new hires every year that are direct college graduates. So we continue to see opportunities in that space. I think the nature of the graduates has changed. It used to be mainly focused on operations, but now, you know, we have finance, you know, data analytics, IT. We hire kind of broad brush of a number of different types of careers, and with the elevation of supply chain, people see it as an exciting place to be.
So your learning rate right now in the 30 years, is it at an all-time high?
Certainly is. You know, there's and it's different. You focus on a number of different things. So, you know, the first couple of months, it was focused on just getting my feet under me from understanding what the job was. And today, I'm really focused on continuing to drive the culture of the organization in the right direction. And this business goes because we have the best people, and we need to make sure that we're providing an environment where people want to come and work, and they're knocking at the door to get in, and we want to make sure that we're that right employer, the employer of choice for our associates. So real exciting time to be here.
So maybe we can conclude on culture. How would you describe the DHL supply chain culture?
Oh, geez, that's tough. I always tell people it is really difficult to put your to explain what culture is, but I can explain some attributes of what that looks like. So I think we have the most innovative supply chain organization globally. I think we're on the leading edge with regard to robotics and how AI is going to impact our business. You know, from an overall standpoint, I think that we're a welcoming organization. I think people feel like they can bring their true self to work every day, and that's important to us overall, because I think when people feel welcome, they're going to give their best organizationally. I think there's a family feeling within DHL. And we really try to focus on that. I think people are invested in other success, and when you can get people excited about the success of others, not just themselves, you have something pretty special. So those are some of the things that come to mind when I think about the culture of DHL. But if you're part of the organization, you feel it, and you know what it is, and generally, I think, you know, people enjoy working here.
Yeah, great. Well said. Well, thank you for joining. You will be back, I'm sure, and we'll look forward to that. But between now and then, good luck. You have our support, and look forward to the months to come.
Thank you, Will.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate us and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen to our entire library of episodes on our website, dhl.com/ABNB podcast. See you next time.